Hey there, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast, the show that's all about helping photographers just like you build a thriving business without sacrificing your sanity. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned full-time photographer and marketing coach, here to fill your earbuds each week with practical tips, real-life stories, and a whole lot of encouragement. So if you're ready to dive in, let's get to it because this girl means business. Hey there, and welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. And if you are watching this video, welcome to the Girl Means Business YouTube channel. Now, I've had a YouTube channel for a while, and I've shared the audio versions of this podcast, but I decided to dive into the video aspect of this. Now, here's a couple little things to note about the video piece of this podcast. If you still want to just listen traditionally on your podcast player, you can absolutely do that. Nothing is going to change there. But if you are someone who likes to have a visual to go along with the audio experience, you can now watch the podcast episodes on my YouTube channel at Girl Means Business. A couple things about that is, one, this is going to be the most laid back video you're probably going to find on YouTube because I am not... While I love watching all those polished, really highly edited videos, that is not for me. If I'm going to do this, it's going to be me in my office talking to you like I'm sitting across the table from a friend. So while there might be a little bit of editing that happens, there might be a couple little pop-ups here and there that I add into the video aspect. Essentially what you see is what you're going to get, because some days like today, I am in my sweats and my hair is up in a bun, and that's about what you're going to get. There may be other days that I will show up a little more done up, a little more polished, but for the most part, this is how I talk to you on the podcast. This is what I look like when I record the episodes, and I want the video to feel the same way that the podcast episodes do. If you have been listening to the show for a while through your favorite podcast player, I would love for you to go over to the Girl Means Business YouTube channel. I will link it in the show notes, and just give it a quick subscribe, follow, like a couple of the videos, anything to help show some of your support. And just to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, one of the reasons why I'm leaning into the video side of this, even though I'm late to the game, is because in the podcast space, the amount of sort of analytics, feedback, information you get about who subscribes, who follows, who listens to your podcast is very, very limited. And so I like the idea of having the YouTube piece because it gives me a little bit more insight into who's listening. You're able to comment on my videos and I can talk back to you. We can have a conversation in the chat section in the comments, whereas most podcast players, you can't do that. So it allows us to have a little bit more of a connection than we can just here on our Apple Podcast or our Spotify platforms. But again, if you prefer your audio, that is always available as well. Okay, so now let's get into this week's topic. This week, the topic is what to do when your business feels overwhelming. And essentially, this is a sort of a life lesson as well. What to do when life starts to feel overwhelming. So in the last couple of months, there are two sort of inciting incidences that have created this new mindset shift. And honestly, if you've paid any attention to my episodes, you know that I took about a 5-week hiatus from the podcast. It was unplanned. I didn't announce anything. I just had a moment where I felt like things were getting to be really, really overwhelming. And I needed to kind of weed out some of the things that felt too much. And unfortunately, the podcast was one of those things that I was just like, I could not fit it into my schedule. And so I was like, you know what? It's something that is evergreen. It can live on in my business without me putting out content on a regular basis. So I kind of hit pause, but I'm back. I'm re-energized. I'm ready to go. So back in December, January-ish, around the time that people start making New Year's resolutions, I was in this like headspace of what do I want 2026 to look like and what do I want it to feel like? Not just what do I want success-wise, but what did I want for myself? What was my quality of life that I wanted to have going into the new year? And while a lot of people will set resolutions, and I'm not opposed to resolutions, I'm not saying they're bad, I find that resolutions don't always work for me. I also am one who believes that you don't need a January 1st in order to make a change in your life or in your business. So resolutions have always kind of been something that I've kind of pushed against. But I liked this idea of setting an intention for the year, setting up a word for the year. And the word I chose was simplify. Because when I looked at what I was doing in my time off while I was on, the kids were out of school, and we were spending more time as a family, we were hanging out at home, and I was starting to get into I was reading more books, I was doing more crafts, I was, watching some shows I wanted to catch up on, I was spending time outside, we were playing board games, we were doing things as a family, and I was doing things on my own that filled my cup up on a daily basis. Now, I know that during that time frame, I could kind of put work aside. My husband was home. The kids were out of school. We didn't have the normal chaos of life happening. And so it was an exception to the rule. However, in that time frame, I had this sort of aha moment where I was like, why can't life look more like this on a regular basis? Because when I think back to what my grandparents and my great-grandparents, even my parents' lives looked like before all of this busyness, there was way more opportunity for moments of stillness, moments of quiet, moments of reflection, moments of connection with actual people. And I started really craving a lot of that and being very nostalgic for that aspect of life. And at the same time that this was happening, my youngest daughter loves she's into Goosebumps books and scary-ish movies, things like that, kind of sci-fi stuff. And so she had asked if she could watch Stranger Things. And I was like, well, let's start at season 1. I will watch it with you. And if at any point I feel like it's not appropriate for you or it gets too scary, we can always turn it off. She absolutely loves it, by the way. So now I'm sucked into 5 seasons of the show, which I've already seen. It's totally fine. But she's really enjoying it. But what's been really fun and kind of an unexpected side effect of watching the show is, and if you're not familiar, Stranger Things, it's set in the 1980s. It follows a group of friends who are kind of fighting this otherworldly situation. I'll say it that way. I don't know how to explain it exactly properly, but it's set in the 1980s. And as I'm watching the show with her and I'm listening to her kind of ask questions about things they use these big walkie-talkies with these big antennas to communicate among the friends when they're riding their bikes around town and they're going to the arcade and they're doing all these things. And she's like, well, why don't, what are those then? Well, those were walkie-talkies. They used those because they didn't have cell phones or, calling on an actual landline to talk to somebody and them not being home. And so you didn't really have a choice other than to say well, I'll have to either wait for them or assume that they're somewhere else or go look for them. And all of that kind of combination of watching this show that is set in this era of time that I am nostalgic about as my childhood was in the 80s and having this moment in my personal life where I'm carving out time, where I'm putting technology aside and I'm spending time doing things that I actually enjoy and that make me feel good and rejuvenate me. It all created this perfect storm of I want more of this in my life. I want to simplify my life. And I want to start looking for ways to either remove things that are causing me stress and anxiety or find a way to modify them to fit into my life in a different way. And how can I create space and time for more of the things that do make me happy, that do make me feel like I am restoring my soul and my energy? And so through all that, I was like, okay, this is the year that I simplify my business, I simplify my life, I get back to some of the basics, and I shut out some of the noise. And I promise this is going to go in a direction of business, just bear with me. The second thing that happened, and it felt very insignificant at the time, but the more I kind of thought on it, the more I was like, oh, this is pretty powerful, was I was scrolling through social media, which I just said I didn't want to do, I want to do less of, but I was scrolling through social media one day and I came across this video and I could not tell you who the actual video, who the account was, but I remember it being this video of a woman, clearly a mom, and she's doing daily tasks in her life. So one of them was she's packing lunches, or one of them was she was washing her hands in the sink or getting her kids ready, like trying to get her kids to get their shoes on in the morning or before they left the house. And each time she was doing it really, really rushed. Like she's washing her hands really fast, or she's packing the lunches really quick, or she's like in a panic because the kids aren't putting their shoes on. And each time she stops, she takes a breath and she says, "This is not an emergency." And she slows down and she washes her hands a little slower. She packs the lunches a little slower. She tells the kids like a little calmer, like, "Hey, we need to get ready to go. Could you please come over here and do this?" Like, and something about that. And the caption, I want to say it had something to do with like, it's really easy for our nervous systems to feel like we're in constant go, go, go panic mode because everything around us is kind of telling us like, be quick, go fast, do this immediately, like always be available. And it has started to seep into our nervous systems and become like a normal habit for us. And as soon as I saw that I had like this, like clouds broke apart, sun rays came down, angels singing like, oh, like this is the breakthrough like moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I do this all the time. I find myself like in the shower shampooing my hair and I'm like in a panic. I'm not in a panic, but like I'm frantic. Like I'm trying to be really quick and I'm like rinsing. And there's been times when like I don't get like my hair is not as clean as I want it to be because I didn't take the time to do it. Or I'm putting dishes in the dishwasher and I realize that I'm like doing it really quickly. And I'm like, why? Why do I feel like everything's an emergency? And then at the same time, around this time, I've had this in my head for a while of like, we need to deregulate ourselves from this idea that everything's an emergency. Everything has to happen so quickly and so fast. And it occurred to me that not only was I doing this in my personal life, I was doing this in my business. And I know I'm not alone in this because I've seen people posting in different Facebook groups and on places about like, a perfect example is a photographer came into a Facebook group and she was like, okay, I have clients that'll like message me at 6:45 at night, right as I'm in the middle of getting dinner ready for my family. And I feel like I need to respond, but should I respond or should I not? Or someone will say like, when do you respond to your messages? Because if I get an inquiry at like 8:30 at night, I feel obligated to respond to it before someone else does. And it kind of occurred to me that we're doing this whole thing backwards. Okay, we're making it harder for ourselves. I've been making it harder for myself. You are probably making it harder for yourself, and it has to be. Because we are so inundated with all of this stuff of like, be the first one to respond, always be available, always be on, always be checking your messages, always be this, always be that. And at the same time, it's like, be on this platform, be on that platform, be doing this, make sure you're including this, make sure you're adding this to your business. And it's just too much. And we were not designed as humans to have all of this stuff on us at one time. When I think about like anthropologically, like we as a society, we as humans, were designed to live in little groupings. And we were designed to be a part of this grouping, and that things that were happening far, far away that didn't affect our community didn't come to us. Like we didn't know about them. We didn't acknowledge them. And as our world has gotten broader and broader with social media and the internet and news channels and access to information from around the world, you might be hearing, maybe you're a photographer in a small town in Indiana, and you're hearing about something that this big, huge photographer in New York City is doing, and you're like, oh, maybe that would work for me. And you're adding more and more things to your plate, and then you're starting to feel overwhelmed. And I'm not saying you can't take ideas from other people and other things. Like, yes, absolutely, I want you to, but I want you to be smart and strategic about it. So I want you to simplify what you're doing in your business. I want you to simplify, and I also want you to remind yourself that not everything is an emergency. So when your business and your life starts to feel overwhelming, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to say, let me take stock, let me take inventory of all the things that I am doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. What pieces of those things are causing me the most stress, the most overwhelm? Is it trying to keep up with social media content? Okay. Well, if it is, let's look at Are you trying to be on all the places? Can you eliminate some of those? Can you simplify it down to just the platform that your audience spends the most time on? Is it that you're trying to do content for social media and blogs and emails and all these other things? Where are your clients finding you at? Simplify it. Get down to the basics of like, where is your audience finding you and how can you come back to the basics of that? If it's that you constantly feel like you're behind, you constantly feel like you can't stay on top of all the things, then look and see like, are you creating this stress upon yourself by feeling like and putting the pressure on yourself to be available at all times? You don't have to be available at all times. We shouldn't be available at all times. One of the things I've done in my business, and I did this a while back, is I set boundaries around my work hours. And not just for like me, like there are nights that if I have a free night and I want to work on a client's gallery, or I want to do something on my website, or I want to update my blog and it's 7:30 at night and there's nothing else going on, I will do it. But for the most part, when it comes to what my clients see from me, it's during working hours. If they message me at 8 o'clock at night, I am not responding until 8 a.m. the next morning or later. If they send me an email at 7:45 inquiring about a session, they get an automatic email back that says, "Thank you so much for your message. I will respond to you during business hours from this time to this time on weekdays." And that lets them know, it sets boundaries. And if you set those boundaries with your clients and they're not happy about it, you don't want to work with those clients anyway. Trust me, you don't want to work with those clients anyway, because they're going to expect more from you than you're willing to give, and they're going to drain you dry. So when life and business start to feel overwhelming, I want you to come back to this idea of simplifying everything. Look at all the things that you're doing and go, where can I either automate or outsource? Where can I get rid of this? How can I lean more into something else? Because you don't need to be doing everything, everywhere, all the time. Okay, it's not how we're designed to be. And if you find yourself being pulled to be available and on all the time, then I want you to train yourself to stop and go, this is not an emergency. Okay? Take a breath, repeat after me. This is not an emergency. What we do as photographers is not life and death. Okay? If we get the shot, great. If we don't, the world does not end. Someone's life is not gone because we didn't get that shot, or we didn't book that client, or we didn't, whatever it might be, whatever it is that you feel like you have to be so rushed about. If your client doesn't get a message from you for a couple of hours because you're at your kid's ball game or dance recital or graduation, or they're mad because they didn't get their gallery in a certain amount of time because you had a life event happening, then that's okay. They need to understand, and it starts with setting boundaries, but it also starts with you creating the mindset of, this is not an emergency. It's going to be fine. I can take a breath. Whether that is take a breath, count to 10, and then get to whatever it is you need to do, slowly, cautiously, like very intentionally, or maybe it's take a breath and step away for a second and go, I will get to that when it's in my work hours time, or when I have the capacity to handle that. This is me giving you permission to say, you can simplify your business, get to the basics, figure out what's working, what's not working, and focus on what's working, get rid of what's not working, simplify your business, and your reminder that it's okay to take a breath and say, this is not an emergency. All right, thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you found this helpful. I know it veered a little bit away from our typical like business and marketing strategy topics, but mindset and how we approach our business is just as important as the strategies and systems that we put in place. And so I thought this was an important episode and a good one to come back from on my little break that I had. I want to remind you that if you have not subscribed to the podcast, either on your podcast platform or on YouTube, please do so now. You can click that subscribe button or that bell and make sure you get notified every time new episodes come out. And as always, I would love for your feedback, so feel free to leave me a comment or send me a message at Kendra@girlmeansbusiness.com or anywhere on social at Girl Means Business. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you back here next week, same time, same place.